So growing up, basketball for me at that time was a way to get an education. My family, I'm from my immediate family is my mom and my brother, but I grew up with my extended family, which was my grandmother. She had 10 kids and they had kids. So I grew up in a household of like 15 people.
Wow.
I always remember sleeping in the bed with my cousins. I slept in a bed, king size bed, with four of us would sleep in the bed head to toe for about 8 or 9 years. So basketball for me was a way to kind of escape the crowdedness in the family and go out and do some things, but then kind of exploit. And one thing I always say, I had an uncle and his name was Tom, and we weren't allowed to call him Uncle Tom. We had to call him Tom, my uncle, who kind of exposed us, as well as John and George, my other two uncles, to sports. My uncles loved baseball. That was their first love, in the Negro League and all that coming up. They had that, but then they exposed us to football, which one of my uncles played. One of my uncles, George, ran track. And then there was basketball. And when basketball came about, and we were seasonal sports people, whatever season it was, that's the sport we played. So when basketball came around, Tom used to sit me down, and I'll never forget this, a little black and white TV, and he was a true diehard Celtic fan. And he would sit me down, he said, "Hey, Michael, listen, watch the way these guys play. Sam Jones, Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, that was my idol, Havlicek, he kind of did everything. The sixth man didn't mind, could start when he wanted to, but he did everything. So I was always watching the Celtics growing up. Yes, we were living in LA, and as I got older, I started kind of being that hometown player. So I was watching Wilt and Elgin and Jerry play, and then my heart was always broken because the Celtics were always winning. So for me, growing up playing basketball was one day envisioning myself being in the NBA. It wasn't a true reality for me, but it was a way to play basketball so I can go on to get an education. And that's what happened. Played through high school. uh, uh, Grades weren't good enough to get me straight to a 4 year. So I took that route that a lot of kids think is the wrong route, into a community college. I went to Pasadena City College, and that's where I enhanced my academic skills as well as my athletic skills. And that's where I was noticed. My sophomore year in junior college, New Mexico, Vegas, all these schools started coming because I was starting to become that player. And I chose New Mexico. And so for me, growing up playing basketball I was going to, my high school coach used to always say this, the late, great George Turgeon. He always used to say, fellas, talking to all the kids that he's coached over the years, use basketball before basketball used you. And that's what I tried to do.